What if the real reason your relationship feels cold and distant has nothing to do with arguments, chores, or money, but with the quiet, awkward truth that you and your partner aren't having enough sex? Now, that might sound shallow at first, like someone whining that their partner doesn't play enough tennis with them. But here's the cold, hard truth. A sexless relationship isn't a luxury problem at all. It's one of the biggest warning signs that something deep is breaking down between two people. And most couples never see it coming until it's too late. Studies show that in countries across the OECD, around 70% of people who initiate divorce say lack of sex was one of the top reasons their relationship fell apart. Think about that. 70%. That's not trivial. That's tragic. So today, we're diving into why sex matters so much, not just as an act of pleasure, but as the ultimate language of love, trust, and emotional security. And we'll unpack why its absence can quietly destroy even the strongest bond. Why sex is more than just sex. Let's start with the big question. Why does sex matter this much? At its core, sex is about more than the physical. It's about being seen and accepted for everything you are, even the messy, awkward, or downright weird parts of yourself. During sex, two people share a kind of trust that words can't match. You're not pretending. You're not curating your best version for Instagram or dinner with friends. You're raw, vulnerable, real. In those moments, we say to each other, "I see you, and I still want you." That's why sex can feel like a cure for loneliness itself. It's a living reminder that someone knows you, body and soul, and chooses you anyway. When that connection disappears, it's not just about missing physical pleasure, it's about missing emotional safety. So when a couple stops having sex, it's rarely just a dry spell. It's usually a signal. Something's off. Trust, communication, attraction, or even self-esteem. And ignoring that signal, that's what hurts most relationships. The silent explosion. In most couples, the lack of sex doesn't start with a dramatic argument. It starts quietly. Maybe one person makes a shy move one night. A hand slides over under the covers looking for a little intimacy, and the other person turns away or says, "Not tonight." Again and again. The rejection isn't always cruel. It's often tired, distracted, or even unintentional. But it hits deep. The partner who wants connection starts to feel invisible, rejected, unloved. Now here's where it gets messy. Instead of opening up and saying, "Hey, I'm feeling unwanted," most people repress it. Because that's an unbearably vulnerable thing to admit, being unwanted by the person you love most. So what happens instead? The pain leaks out in weird ways, little acts of anger or bitterness. They start slamming cabinet doors, rolling their eyes, picking fights about stupid things, the dishes, the in-laws, the thermostat. What's really happening is a desperate cry for attention that's being disguised as domestic frustration. The sex-starved partner becomes mean, which ironically makes their partner even less interested in intimacy. It becomes a vicious cycle. When silence builds walls. Let's pause here for a question, one that might hit close to home. Question: if lack of sex hurts so much, why don't couples just talk about it? Answer: because nothing hits the ego harder than being unwanted sexually. Being turned down by your partner doesn't just sting, it eats at your sense of worth. Especially inside a committed relationship where sex was once easy, fun, and passionate. Suddenly, you're thinking, what changed? Am I not attractive anymore? Did I do something wrong? And those questions spiral fast into shame. You start blaming yourself. Maybe you think you've gained weight, lost confidence, or just become boring. The silence grows heavier until both people are quietly suffering, one from rejection, the other from pressure. Yet here's the twist. Most of the time, the rejection isn't about you at all. The hidden reasons people lose sexual interest. When someone doesn't want sex, it's not because they've stopped caring. It's because something deeper inside them is blocking it, and they don't know how to express it. They might think, I wish we could have sex, but I just feel emotionally disconnected. Or, I'd want it more if I felt understood or appreciated. Or, I'm stressed out, exhausted, or just not in the right mental space. Or maybe, I want to try different things, but I'm scared they'll judge me. See, everyone wants sex in principle, but real intimacy requires emotional safety first. If the partner feels ignored, criticized, or anxious, their mind can't connect to their body. They don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable sexually. Sometimes the reason is darker, a buildup of unresolved resentment. Maybe your partner feels like you never listen, or that you've stopped showing affection outside the bedroom. For them, sex might feel like another duty rather than mutual connection. That kills desire fast. There can also be deeper psychological reasons, old trauma, guilt, or even hormonal shifts that make arousal difficult. And yet, because these reasons are private or shameful, people hide them instead of discussing them. When sex becomes a weapon. The really painful part? When the lack of sex stops being a symptom and becomes a weapon. By now, both partners feel trapped. One person feels rejected and resentful. The other feels guilty and pressured. Soon enough, touch itself becomes loaded. A simple hug feels like a demand. A kiss feels forced. And both start avoiding each other out of fear. One afraid of rejection, the other afraid of disappointing or being judged. That's how emotional distance thickens. And often it ends with an affair, not because someone stopped loving their partner, but because they've stopped feeling desired by them. Affairs, in many cases, are desperate attempts to remember what it feels like to be wanted. It's heartbreaking, because underneath all that drama are two people who just don't know how to talk about what's really going on. Breaking the silence. So how do couples fix this before it's too late? The answer sounds almost too simple, but it's this: communication. Brutally honest communication. But here's the catch. You can't just say, we never have sex anymore. That triggers defensiveness. Instead, real progress happens when both people drop the masks and say what's actually going on in a calm, loving way. One powerful tool therapist suggests is this exercise called What I Want from Sex. Here's how it works. Each partner writes a letter, privately, beginning with the title, What I Want from Sex. You write honestly, not what you think your partner wants to hear, but what you truly need. Like, I want more slow, affectionate intimacy, not just quick sex. Or, I wish you were more playful or experimental. Or, I miss feeling desired. Or, I want more physical touch during the day, not just at night. Then you exchange letters. No interruptions, no defensiveness, just empathy and curiosity. This exercise sounds cheesy, but it's transformative, because when people see their partner's truth written out without anger or accusation, empathy replaces resentment. You stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing each other as fellow humans just trying to reconnect. Rebuilding desire step by step. Once you've talked about what you need, there's still the challenge of rebuilding that spark. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen. Here's how couples can reignite intimacy. 1. Start small. Don't aim for wild passion immediately. Start with touch, closeness, and affection that doesn't demand sex, like holding hands, hugging longer, or lying close together at night. 2. Release pressure. The moment sex feels like a test, it stops feeling fun. Let go of goals. Focus on play, laughter, and flirtation again. 3. Talk openly. Make it normal to talk about sex without awkwardness. Normalize what turns you on, what stresses you out, and what feels good. 4. Understand each other's love languages. Some people feel loved through touch, others through words or acts of service. Knowing your partner's language helps you rebuild emotional intimacy that eventually leads to physical closeness. And remember, sex doesn't need to be perfect or constant. What matters most is that both people feel accepted and seen. What healthy sexual communication looks like. Let's play out a quick example. Imagine a couple. Emma and Mark. They've been together for 7 years. Lately, their intimacy has dropped from weekly to almost non-existent. Instead of fighting, they've gotten distant. Emma feels rejected. Mark feels pressured. Here's what a destructive version of their conversation might sound like. Emma: "You never want to have sex anymore. Do you even find me attractive?" Mark: "God, can we not do this again? I'm just tired, okay?" Sound familiar? Defensive, hurtful, going nowhere. Now, here's what a healthy version might sound like. Emma: "Hey, I've been feeling kind of disconnected lately. I miss how we used to be close. I don't just miss sex, I miss feeling desired by you. Is something bothering you? How can we reconnect?" Mark: "Yeah, I've been stressed and numb from work lately. When you touch me, I freeze up, not because I don't want you, but because my head's just elsewhere." Notice the difference? No blame, no anger, just listening and vulnerability. That's how emotional safety and eventually sexual connection returns. The healing power of acceptance. Every couple is a little sexually incompatible. That's just human nature. The goal isn't perfect alignment, it's compassion. When we start accepting our differences, we stop turning sex into a performance test. One partner might be adventurous, the other shy. One might crave frequency, the other depth. Both are valid, as long as there's understanding. Being desired doesn't mean being flawless, it means being accepted as real. In a world obsessed with polished perfection, that's actually what most people crave underneath it all. Someone who says, "You're okay just as you are." That's what sex symbolizes, a moment where you can be yourself, with all your quirks, scars, and fantasies, and still be loved. The angels in the bedroom. Here's a beautiful metaphor that always sticks. Every time a couple sits down in a quiet, honest way and talks about their sex life, not in anger but with love, quote, "The angels of relationships hover over the room and sound their silent trumpets in celebration," unquote. Because that conversation, raw and unfiltered, is what keeps relationships alive. Not the gifts, not the vacations, not the Instagram posts, but the courage to face awkward truths together with empathy. So, if your relationship is struggling with lack of sex, don't panic and don't give up. You're not doomed. You're being invited to look deeper, to rebuild emotional intimacy brick by brick. Because under all the pain, most couples aren't broken, they're just disconnected. What if tonight, instead of rolling over in silence, you asked your partner one simple question? What do you need from me to feel closer again? That question could change everything, because behind every fight, every cold night, and every unspoken frustration, there's usually the same quiet longing to feel wanted, safe, and understood. So, talk, touch, laugh again. Start small, because the real magic of relationships isn't found in grand gestures, it's in the quiet courage to say what you need. Questions to keep viewers thinking and engaged. Why do people find it so hard to talk about sex openly with their partner? Because it exposes our deepest insecurities. We fear rejection in sex more than almost any other area of life. Is a low-sex relationship doomed? Not necessarily. What matters is emotional communication and willingness to reconnect. How often is enough sex? There's no one-size-fits-all answer, but studies suggest that less than 4 times a month may start to affect emotional closeness in long-term relationships. So, how can you ask for more sex without sounding desperate? By focusing on emotional connection. Say, "I miss feeling close to you," not "you never want me." So, here's your takeaway. A lack of sex doesn't mean the love is gone, but it is a signal. It says, pay attention. Something in our connection needs care. Listen to that signal early, before anger, ego, or silence take over. Because when two people choose to talk, to listen, and to rebuild trust, even the most broken intimacy can be revived. And in that moment, love gets another chance to breathe.